Hello folks, welcome to another part in this hybrid zombie shooter tutorial series. Today we're going to take a look at a quest tracker system where you'll be able to scroll through the quest tracker left and right, and also the quest tracker is going to be updated based on whenever different events in the game happens, like when you complete a quest or when you pick up a quest. This is going to be a pretty straightforward tutorial. There are a lot of modules that we're going to be adding to our existing quest system, but it's definitely going to be worth your time here. Once again, thank you very much for stopping by. If you do like these type of videos, please hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel, as I do have more and more videos in this quest series coming up. So without further ado, let's get into the video. For the purpose of today's tutorial, I went ahead and downloaded some icons for the E button and also the Q button. And also I updated our quest table with 2 additional quests just so that I can start going through them. So let's get started. Let's go to our content drawer. Inside of our quest system, go to your UI and then create a new user interface of type widget blueprint and user widget. Let's name this W_quest tracker. Open this up, and I'm going to show you a very simple tracker, and in your game, feel free to go nuts with this and add as many elements to it as you want. We're going to start with a size box. And I'm going to select the size box and then do a width and a height override, and then do the width about 400 and the height to be about 75. And I'm going to set this to desired on screen so I can see how big the size box is going to be. This is pretty good. And inside of here, I'm going to add in an overlay so I can start adding multiple components to this. And inside of the overlay, I'm going to add in a horizontal box. Now, this horizontal box is going to house 2 buttons and then the name of the quest in between. So I'm going to drag in a button. Now, I'm dragging in a button because I like the way how you can customize your button compared to like an image. You need to get a specific image with border and such. But for buttons, you can just add 2 buttons and then you can just add in an image. And it looks very good instead of having an image. And the first button, I'm going to name this as button_left. And the second button is going to be button_right. I'm going to right click on this button left and I'm going to wrap it with an overlay. And I'm going to add in an image to this overlay. And I'm going to select the image and then just drag it so it's right above the button, so the button's in the foreground. Select the image, and I'm going to set the image to this simple white icon that I have, just like that. And then the button, I'm going to select the left button, and then this is going to be our Q. And I'm going to add this as our icon here. Now I'm going to select the overlay here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to wrap it with a size box. And the size box, I'm going to do a width and a height override, and we can do this 32 by 32. And that will make our entire thing fall into place properly. And same thing for the button right. I can just go ahead and delete it, and then just right click on the size box, duplicate it. And then instead of our button left, I will just rename this to button right. And the image, I will set this to the E icon. Now, one more thing that you do need to set up here is select the button and then make sure that this normal style for Q is copied, and then you paste it over hovered and also over on pressed. So the button stays the same throughout the entire operation. Same thing for our right button as well. I'm going to copy the normal version of it and then paste it on pressed and hovered. So when I hover over the button and also press the button, they all stay the same. Now, in our tutorial today, I am not going to do anything with this button because the way that the quest tracker works is it's always active on your screen. You would just press 2 predetermined keyboard buttons to go left and right. And that's why I'm using Q and E. And I'm going to assign these to Q and E. In your game, feel free to add in the cursor to actually make this button fully functional. However, in our functionalities, I will connect the on-clicked function of these buttons to our function, so it's readily available for you, but I'm not going to be using it. In between these 2 horizontal boxes, I'm going to add in a vertical box. So let's go search for a vertical box and then just drop it on top of the horizontal box, and then followed by just dragging it in between these 2 size boxes, so it becomes 3 separate elements. And inside of this vertical box, I'm going to add in a wrap box. And this wrap box is going to be our quest_container, and then promote this to a variable. I'm going to select this overlay now, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to wrap it with a wrap box, compile and save it. This is all we're going to do for now. And now we're going to go ahead and add this to our screen and see how this looks. So back in our content drawer, we're going to go to our core, UI, and then open up our player HUD. Inside of our player HUD, we're going to go ahead and search for W Quest Tracker, and then drag it and drop it onto the canvas panel. And here you can just select the quest tracker and then move it anywhere on the screen as you would like. I'm going to put it on the right side of the screen. So first I'm going to set up the anchor to the middle right, and then set the position of this to 0, 0. And I'm going to now start moving it manually until I find a place where I like it. Just about here, and I'm just going to expand it here as well. And now if I go ahead and press play, you should see those two buttons pop up right there, which looks good. I'm just going to stretch this out just a little bit more and then go ahead and compile. And again, we can play with this and do all the alignments as we start building into our tracker. But now let's go back to our tracker and start working on it. And using our pre-construct, we need to now go and get a list of all of the active quests that the player currently have. And we're going to use the interface function to take care of this. So we're going to go to our content drawer, go to the core interfaces folder, open up BPI quest. And the first function that we're going to add in here is get quests in array. And this is going to have an output, and this would be of type quests array. And again, this would be of type st_quests, quest data. And then we're going to make this of type array. Now we need to go to our quest manager. So we're going to go back to our quest system, blueprints, quest manager. And in our interfaces, we should have get quests in array. Double click on it. And here we're going to drag in our active quest. And then we're going to do a values. And this is going to give an array of all the quests that the player currently has. And we're going to return this as our interface return. And back in our quest tracker, we're going to create a function because we're going to have to go and retrieve this quest array multiple times as things change in the game. So we're going to create a function to take care of this. And this would be setup quest last index. So this is a multi-use function. So we're going to get our player character. And from here, we're going to get component by class and set this to our quest manager. And drag off of the return value, and we're going to get quests array or question array. So first, I'm going to check to see if this is empty. If it is empty, let's go ahead and do a branch here and then connect this over to our Boolean. If this quest is empty, then we want to use a variable to notify our blueprint here that the quest is empty. So we're going to go ahead to our variable and create a new variable and name this as isQuestEmpty. And we're going to drag in this isQuestEmpty, and off of true, we're going to set this to true. And off of false, we're going to go ahead and set this to false to notify that the quests are not empty. And next, I'm going to drag off of this quest array here, and I'm going to get the last index. And I'm going to promote this to a variable, and this is going to be last index in quest array. And then connect this off of our false here. And then also I'm going to do a return node and connect this last index to our return node here as well. And we can set this to last index. All right, so that's it for this function. So off of our event graph on pre-construct, we're going to drag and connect this setup quest last index function. So what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and set up our isQuestEmpty Boolean and also set up our last question index. And also it's going to get an array of all the quests that the player has. And if the array is empty, then it's just going to say the quest is empty and it's not going to do anything about it. So we're good with that. Off of our event construct, we're going to drag in our isQuestEmpty and check to see if our quest is empty. Now, if the quest is empty, then we're going to drag in our button left and also our button right. And then we're going to set visibility for both of these buttons. Let me go ahead and duplicate this. Both of them are going to be set to hidden. And connect this target here, just like this. And connect this to the true node. And then also, we're going to drag in our quest container. And we're going to clear children. And this is to start. If the quest empty is false, that means we do have quest. Then we want to go ahead and do the exact same thing on this side. But we're just going to set this to visible. Set all of these to visible. we're going to go ahead and create a widget. And this is going to be our quest info. We're going to drag in our quest container, and then we're going to add child and connect this to the return value and the content. Now, our quest info is already defined. This is what our quest UI is actually using to populate it. So we're going to just use this in our tracker. We don't need to go ahead and create any new ones. We can just reuse this, right? But we need to send in the information for the quest info. For this, we need to now go and get the quest from our quest array. So we're going to do a function for this. So first, our function is going to be called get quest by index. So inside of here, this function, we're going to get our player character. And using our player character, we're going to get the component by class. For this, we're going to set up our quest manager as our component as usual. And off of this, we're going to get all quests in or get quests in array. And here, we're going to do a get node, and we're going to do a get a copy. And this integer, we're just going to go and plug it into this get quest by index, and that's going to add in as an input. We can actually rename this to index, and we're going to go ahead and do a return node, and then we're going to return the quest information for that specific index. And we can rename this as our quest info. Compile and save this. So now when we go back to our event graph, before we go ahead and create this widget quest, let's go ahead and call in our get quest by index function. And then this quest info, now we can plug it in here and leave this at index 0. So now we can determine which quest information is going to be shown based on this index value. So we're going to drag off of this index, and then we're going to promote it to a variable. And we're going to name this as our active tracker page. Compile and save this information. And the default value for this active tracker page is going to be set to 0. So when the game starts, we are going to always show the first quest in our array. This function only runs when the game starts. And when the game starts, the player, if they haven't picked up any of the quest or if there's no quest available, then this widget is not going to populate with any type of information. So every time the player picks up a quest, we want to notify this quest tracker that the player has picked up a quest, or we just need to notify saying, hey, the player has done something significant. So we're going to go to our BPI quest and then add in a new function. And this is going to be notify_UI. At this time, there are not going to be any inputs, but we're going to be coming back to add some inputs later on. Now let's implement this function. So go to your quest manager and then go to your start quest logic function. At the end of start quest logic, after you set up your objective UI, we're going to get all widgets with interface. And this is going to be our quest interface. And we're going to call in the notify UI function. And if you can't really get it off of this, just do the get player character workaround. So drag your get player character, and then off of this, we're going to go ahead and call the notify UI as a message. Then delete your player character and go ahead and connect this in here just like this. And also the array, we can connect this into the target. Now, every time the player starts a new quest, this notify UI interface function is going to fire. So in our quest tracker, we're going to go to our class settings, and under implemented interfaces, we're going to go ahead and add in our BPI quest interface. And in our interfaces, we're going to double click on this notify UI event. And when this event is called, we want to go ahead and refresh this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a custom event here. And this is going to be named as refresh tracker. Now I'm going to drag this refresh tracker up top over here. And first, before I go ahead and plug it anywhere, I'm going to go ahead and set up our quest last index. And then I'm going to connect it to the branch. The reason why I'm doing it this way is every time you call in this setup quest last index, it's going to go and update your quest array. So halfway through the game, if you pick up a new quest, then the quest tracker is not going to know that you picked up a new quest unless you run this function right here. So then it can refresh your quest index. And now off of our event notify UI, I can call in the refresh tracker function. If I go ahead and press play and pick up a quest, you can see the quest is showing up on the tracker immediately. And the buttons are a little off, which we can fix it, but we can see the quest is being generated there. To fix the button, I'm going to go to a designer, select the size box for both of these buttons. and I am going to set this to the top alignment. The reason why I want to set this to a top alignment is because I want these buttons to be right beside the name of the quest. So if I press play and if I go and pick this up, you can see that the Q and the E is right beside the name. And if you like it, you can put it in the center alignment. And then if you press play, then the Q and E would be to the center of your quest tracker. Either way works, but I like it on the top. So I'm just going to make it to be on the top over there. And one other thing that I noticed is that there's these two little white boxes, which is the background for the buttons, are still visible even if there's no quest. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to select the first size box here, and I'm going to name this as our left underscore size box. And then the second size box, I'm going to name this as our right underscore size box. And in our graph where we're making our button visible and hidden, I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need these two buttons to be visible and hidden. Instead, I'm going to make the entire size box visible and hidden. Obviously, in your designer, you need to make sure that these are set to variable, or else you're not going to see the variable inside. So let's go ahead and drag in our left size box and connect it to the target here, and also here. And then the right size box, we're just going to connect to this target here and also here. Now, if I go ahead and press play, there's nothing on my screen. As soon as I pick up a quest, you should see those buttons show up, and the quest is in the middle as well. One more thing that I want to do even further is select the left and the right size box, and I'm going to do a padding of 5 all the way around. And this adds a little bit of gap in between all of it, and I think it will look a lot better. Small change, but it looks good. Okay, so that's for the function of setting up our tracker. Now we need to go ahead and do the functionality for scrolling through our tracker, either left or right. So we're going to use an input action to take care of this. So go to our content drawer, go to your third person folder or wherever your input action is, and then go to your input actions, and we're going to create a new input action. Name this IA underscore tracker left, and a second input action, and this was going to be IA underscore tracker right. Now you have both your left and your right tracker here, and then now you go to your mapping context, add in a new mapping. The first one, we're going to set up our IA underscore tracker left, and then add in another mapping, and then this is going to be IA underscore tracker right. For the left one, I'm going to set this to Q, and for the right one, I'm going to set this to E. In your game, you can set it up to whichever button that you would like. So now we can go ahead and save it and close our mapping context, and we need to set this up in our third person character. So we're going to open up our third person character, and we're going to go to our blueprint and our blueprint third person character. At the very bottom here, I'm going to call in our IA tracker left and also IA tracker right. And because our player HUD is housing our quest tracker as an item, and our third person character already has a reference to the player HUD, we can just drag in our player HUD reference, and then we can get our quest tracker from our HUD as a reference. So this is basically this quest tracker in our player HUD. So in our quest tracker, I'm going to go ahead and create 2 new custom events. The first one is going to be scroll left. And then the second custom event is going to be scroll right. And in our third person character, let's go ahead and compile really quickly. So all of these functions take effect. Off of our quest tracker where we have left, we're going to go ahead and call for our scroll left. And this is going to be off of started. And for our right, we're going to go ahead and scroll right and set this to started. That's all you have to do here in our third person character. I'm going to go ahead and close this third person character out after saving it. And back in our quest tracker, on top of using our scroll left, scroll right, like I said, we're going to use the buttons as well. I'm going to select the button left, and then I'm going to select on clicked. So we'll create a on clicked button left. I'm just going to put it right beside scroll left. And same thing for the button right. We're going to do an on clicked. So this way, if you enable these buttons to be functional in your game, then this would work without even you having to set up anything new. So first thing that we need to do for both of these functions is to check if our quest is empty. So we're going to do a get quest is quest empty, and then do a branch for both of these. and then connect this quest empty for both sides here. And now we can go ahead and drag in our scroll right and also the button right in this branch, and then the scroll left and the button left in this branch. So both of them are doing the exact same check, so we can do it just like this, no problem. And if the quest empty is true, then we're just going to do a print string and say player has no quest. Let's do our left side button first, and then we're going to do the right side button. So for if the left side button is false, we want to drag in our active tracker page variable, and then check to see if this is equals to 0. If our active page is 0, that means it's in page number 1, right? Or it's showing our first quest page. Then we want to drag in our active tracker and then do a set node. And the set node is going to be our last index in quest. So I know this could be a little confusing for some of you, so let me explain that. Pretend you only have 3 quests in your entire quest system. And these are your 3 quests, and your player already have their 3 quests. When we start the game, our active tracker page is set to index 0, or active tracker page 0, which is basically quest 1. And when the player presses the left button, we want to go to the left of our quest number 1, which is going to be our quest 3. And our quest 3 is also the last quest in this array of 3 quests. So that's where we're getting the last index in our quest array, and we're setting that as our active tracker page. So it goes from 0 to 2. And in our setup quest last index, you can see that we're getting our last index from this array and setting that up as our last index in quest array. This is the whole point of setting this up here. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And this is only needed if our current active tracker page is equal to 0. If it is not equal to 0, let's say if the active tracker page is 1 or 2 or such, then we're going to go ahead and drag in our active tracker page. And then we're going to drag off of this and do a minus minus to do a decrement. If the active tracker page is at 1, then it's going to go down to 0 and vice versa. So after this is done, we need to now go ahead and refresh our widget. We don't need to go and refresh our entire tracker here. That's not necessary. We only need to go ahead and get the quest by the index, and we need to recreate this widget. So I'm going to create a custom event here and name this on scroll event. And here on scroll event, I want to go ahead and first clear the container, then get the quest based on the active tracker page, and then recreate the quest widget. And here at the end of setting these up, we're going to go ahead and call on scroll event, and then connect both of these in here just like this. And that's it for the left scroll function. Now for the scroll right option, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to drag in our active tracker page. We're also going to drag in our last index variable, and we're going to check to see if both of these are the same. If our active index and our last quest index is the same, that means we're on the last page. If we are on the last page and if we press the right button, then we want to go to our first page. That will be the next page. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in here the active tracker page and leave this at 0 and connect this off of false. And if it is not the same as the last index, then we're going to drag in our active tracker page, and then we're going to do a ++, and we're going to call this node in. And at the end of both of this, we want to go ahead and call in our on scroll event, so it refreshes our quest array. Compile and save it. And before I go ahead and press play, I want to further visualize this for the purpose of this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a text box to our horizontal box, and then select the text block and then set the binding to our active tracker page. So now if I press play, you can see our active tracker page is at 0. When I pick up a quest, you can see our quest is populating, and also our active tracker quest is at 0. When I press E, it's going to go to 1, and then it's going to go through the quest. And then E again, it's going to go through quest number 2, quest 3, and it's going to go back to quest 0. Same thing if we were to go backwards, it's going to go 3, 2, 1, 0, and then it's going to go 3, 2, 1, 0. This is working well. However, there are still some functions that we need to do. For example, if I am on my active index 1, which is quest number 2, if I grab my weapon and I go ahead and kill 3 zombies, 1, 2, and 3, you can see that the quest is completed, but it's still on the screen. That means our tracker is not being notified when a quest is completed. And the fix for this is very simple. We already have our interface function named UI notify UI. We already have it implemented, and it's going to refresh the tracker when it gets implemented. And every time a tracker is refreshed, it's going to go ahead and refresh our array as well. So it's as simple as calling in the notify UI. So go to your quest manager and then go to the function on objective completed. And at the very end where we are refreshing our quest screen, we're going to go ahead and notify UI as well. We're going to get player character, and off of this, we're going to go ahead and notify UI message and then plug this in here. And then we can delete this player character and then drag all of this found widgets and connect to target, because we're already checking all the widgets with interface with this quest interface. So this would apply. So now I'm going to go ahead and press play, grab the quest, cycle through to this quest right here again, and then kill 3 zombies. 1, 2, and then when I kill the third one, you can see it's already moving over to the next quest because we just did a refresh. It's going to go to quest 1, and then we have quest number 2, this one, and then 0, 1, 2. Everything is automatically being updated. And now if I go ahead and kill one more zombie, you can see the quest 2 is completed. However, now our quest screen is still the same. It didn't do any type of refresh. And now I can go ahead and press E, and it's going to go and keep increasing this active index forever. So this is a new problem that we're encountering. So the problem is very straightforward. Every time the zombie dies or when we get a new quest, we're refreshing the tracker. But we're not really refreshing the tracker whenever we scroll left and right. We want to refresh our tracker at this point as well, or else you will get those type of errors that we just saw. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this whole node a little bit further back, and then I'm going to plug in our setup quest last index function in here just like this. Same thing here. I'm just going to move this node back and then drag in this setup quest function in here. We need to go ahead and distinguish to see if this event notify, if we're sending this function when we get a quest, or are we sending this function when we complete a quest? Because at this time, we're sending the event notify in our objective completed, and also when we start our quest, we're sending it as well, but there's no difference. Let's make a difference. Go to our BPI quest, select your UI notify, add in an input, and this would be our completed with a question mark and a Boolean. And back in our quest manager, where we have our on objective completed, we're going to set this to completed to true. On the other hand, when we start our quest, we're going to leave this as false. And here, we're going to go ahead and do a branch. And if the quest is not completed, this is just basically we're adding in a new quest, then we're just going to follow our normal process and refresh the tracker. However, if the quest is being completed, then we want to do a couple different things here. First is we need to know which quest is being completed, right? So we're going to go to our BPI quest again and then add in another input. And this would be our completed quest ID. Set this to an integer. So I'm going to explain to you why we're using this completed quest ID in just a second. But first, we're going to go to our quest manager, and we're going to go and open up on objective completed. And we need to now send in this quest ID. And you can see that the quest ID is a variable. So we can go ahead and copy and paste it here and then plug it in here just like this. Compile and save it. The reason why this completed quest ID is important is because we want to take this completed quest ID and compare it to see if this is the current quest ID that the player is tracking. If the player is tracking this quest ID, then we want to go ahead and call in this scroll right function or scroll left function, and then scroll to the next quest in order. But if it is not, then we don't want to do any type of scroll. We just leave it as it is. So for this, we need to know what is our current tracked quest. So here where we are creating the quest info widget, we're just going to go ahead and just select this and move out a little bit. And then drag off of our quest info and then do a break. And this quest ID, we're going to promote it to a variable. And this variable, we're going to name this as our currently tracked quest. And we're going to set this to our variable here. So every time the active tracker page is changed and this quest data information is changing, it's going to update our currently tracked quest here. And then here in our completed quest ID, we're going to drag in our currently tracked quest. And we're going to check to make sure that these two are the same and then connect this off of true. So if our completed quest equals to the currently tracked quest, then I'm going to quickly go ahead and refresh our index here. And then I'm going to drag in our active tracker page, and I'm going to check to see if our active tracker page is at 0. If it isn't 0, then let's connect this to the condition here. Let's go ahead and refresh the tracker. And if it is not on 0, then we want to go ahead and do a scroll right event, and then we're going to go ahead and refresh the tracker. On the same account, if it is not the completed quest, then we're just going to go ahead and refresh the tracker. And we're going to check to see if our active tracker page is equal to 0 again. And these are some fail-safe checks that we're putting in place. And check this to the branch. And if our active tracker page is 0, then we're going to go ahead and scroll to the left side. You'll see how this works in just a second. Now that we have manually called in the scroll right, we also want to now go ahead and add in a failsafe in our scroll right function. Just before we go ahead and do the increment by +1, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this execution pin. And off of false, we're going to do a last index check function. So set up quest last index. And then also we're going to drag in our active tracker page and then add 1 to it. This is to simulate to see if I take my current active tracker page and add 1 to it, would it be over our last index from our quest array? Is it going to go over our total number of quests? Then we're going to do a branch. And if the result of this is going to go above our last index page, then we would just go ahead and set our active tracker page to 0. So we can just connect this node just like this. And if it is not going to go above our last index, then we can go ahead and do our increment. These are fail safes that's put in place to check to see if we're currently tracking a quest. And if you finish the quest while it's being tracked, we want to move to either the left side or the right side of the quest. Now, if I go ahead and press play, and if I grab some quest, I can see that I have a total of 4 quests on player. While having the 3 zombies quest selected, I can go ahead and kill 3 zombies, 1, 2, 3. It's going to move over to the next quest in line, that is kill 4 zombies. And when I kill the 4th zombie, instead of it just disappearing on the screen, it's going to go to the next one in line, which is our first quest, because that was the last quest in line. And as soon as I kill this first quest in line, then it's going to go to our last quest. And once I complete this last quest, you can see that the entire quest tracker will disappear because we no longer have any quests to be tracked. All right, folks. So that's all it for the tutorial today in creating this tracker for our quest system. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from the community with all these new tutorials I've been putting out, and I'm absolutely grateful, and I appreciate all of your feedback and the time that you take to go through these videos, and also leave your comment below. I am looking forward to many more comments like this, and also let me know how you want me to change this quest system for the better. I'm still not done with this quest system yet. I have a lot more modules planned for this quest system to go through each and every single aspect of this quest system and teach you how to add different type of quest and also utilize every single function in our structure table. So if you would like to see something different while I'm doing this, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to either guide you in our comment section or through Discord, or I can create a separate video to show you. Thank you again for stopping by. I'll catch you all in the next video.